Hello, and welcome to 5-Minute Math. Today we are looking at the Algebra 1 concept of simplifying square roots. This is standard A.11A in the great state of Texas, and we are using item number 53 of the 2018 released STAAR test. If you haven't done so already, please go ahead and take a moment to pause the video, work this problem out on your own, unpause it, and we will look at our answers together. So we need to find an expression that's equivalent to that square root of 96. So what I suggest here is we just list out our perfect squares. So what we're going to do is we're going to see if we can factor this 96 into one of these perfect squares times something else. And so since this is a radical expression, we don't need a decimal equivalent, right? We can plug that into our calculator and figure out exactly what that is to the thousandth place if we really wanted to, but that's not the point. We want to make it look a little bit simpler. Square root of 96 is kind of a big chunk. Now every time that you see a square root of like a 2 or 3 digit number doesn't necessarily mean you can simplify it like we're going to do it here, but it's at least worth a shot. So we've got all of our perfect squares written out here. Here's what we're going to do is we're going to try to divide these numbers, right? 4 into 96, right? 9 into 96, 16 into 96, 25 into 96, so on and so forth, okay? And so let's just start with 96. We divide that by 4. Okay, so we can. So we can start with that. Take a look at this. 96 can be divided by 4 and 24. Okay, now it's not just 96. It's the square root of 96. So we're going to kind of look at it like this. Okay, we're going to say, well, the square root of 96 is the same as the square root of 4 times the square root of 24. And then we know what the square root of 4 is. The square root of 4 is 2. So we can actually simplify it like this. We can say the square root of 96 is equivalent to 2 times the square root of 24, because this square root of 4, we simplified that into a 2. We leave it on the outside. Think of it like parentheses. Now that works. Here's a problem. We don't see that answer selection. So just like when you're simplifying fractions, you always need to think, well, can I simplify it anymore? Let's take a look at this 24. That 2 is still going to stay out there. Take a look at that 24. Can we divide anything into that? And yeah, hopefully you think, oh, I could divide 4 into that again. Right? So 4 times 6. But that's not just 24, that's the square root of 4 times the square root of 6. So just like we did before, we can simplify that 4, the square root of 4, into a 2. So it's 2 square root of 6. It's just this square root of 24. Problem is I also had that other 2 out there. So I need to multiply that 2 times the 2 that was there. So that's going to leave me with 4 square root of 6, which, okay, I'm seeing that answer selection at D. Now, how could we have gotten there originally? Well, we stopped a little bit early, because what we could have seen is if we take our square root of 96, if we were to keep going and say, you know what, square root of 96, that can be divided by 16, right? Anything divided by 16 can be divided by 4, so that's going to give you a false positive sometimes, or it's going to just not be enough. So we can say, all right, so square root of 16 times the square root of 6. We're like, all right, so square root of 16 is really 4, so you end up at the same thing, but you end up doing it one less time. Obviously, what we could do here also is we can just plug it into our calculator. All right, so the square root of 96 is about 9.79, let's call it 8, right? I'm just going to go to the thousandth place. And let's try my 4 times the square root of 6, and yeah, we get the exact same, 9.798-ish. I'm just kind of rounding it. Obviously, 48 is not going to work, 24 is not going to work, and then 8 square root of 6 is going to be 19.596-ish. So too big. So when in doubt, double check with the calculator. Answer's D.